The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
We're back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch. I have my co-host John Wheaton with me tonight.
How's it going, guys?
He's taken like the past week off, hasn't done anything. He's gone to bed early every night. He's got nothing to do as a father with 3 youngins.
Where was I?
Yeah.
Where was the sleep that you speak so highly of?
Yeah. You'll find it again when the last one moves out of the house when you become an empty nester.
Yeah. Gosh, it's a long ways away.
Yeah, I hear you. It feels like it, but it goes in the blink of an eye. Trust me. You look back and you're like, holy crap, where'd all that go? But anyway, all right. So we've got another episode with the primary topic being these drones. It's obviously it's the #1 story right now, and we're all trying to get to the bottom of it. So there was some information from New Jersey, from the state, telling mayors and city PDs that if a drone comes down, to wear hazmat suits and make sure you call the bomb squad, because they're not sure if there's a payload or not. So I'm going to start in with this video, John, and I don't recall how long it is. 4 minutes, 24 seconds. We probably won't play the whole thing, but we'll get the gist of it.
Michael Melham, mayor of Belleville, New Jersey. Now, when you walked up the set just moments ago, you said you were just briefed. What can you tell us?
On the way here, I was on the phone with my OEM team, and we now have guidance coming from the state. And that guidance does say 2 different things. First of all, if there is a downed drone in our vicinity, we are immediately to call the bomb squad of our county. And second, our fire department hazmat suits.
So if something falls out of the sky that people have seen, and some of these things are as big as an SUV, if that happens, you're to treat this more than a plane crash. It's treated like an attack on the homeland?
That is correct, because they're not quite sure if there's a payload or not. And that's what we were told during our briefing on Wednesday.
Wow. So look, you said that you were insulted by how Pentagon and the White House, their messaging coming out. Tell me what you're hearing from them, and why doesn't it match what you were just told moments ago?
So we're being told that people in New Jersey must be crazy, that they're only seeing small aircraft, and that's just not the case. If you're on the ground in New Jersey, my residents are concerned, and they're quite alarmed because they have no idea what's hovering just over their houses.
You've seen these?
I have.
And how would you describe it?
They are definitely small aircraft. I mean, you got to understand, a drone is considered an aircraft because it's flying in space. So it's considered an aircraft. These do look like a small aircraft. There's no doubt about that. They don't look like the personal drones that we're used to seeing, but they're very large, very large.
All right, let me get to this. After several lawmakers have called for authorities to shoot down the drones, now people say that they'll just have to take matters into their own hands if the government is refusing to act. A couple of social media posts representing that sentiment now. A good shotgun will fix that problem. Another semi-automatic 3-inch Magnum, 00 buck full shot.
Okay, come on. How do you say that you know nothing about guns without saying that you know nothing about the guns?
Let me ask you this, because also what you told me as you were sitting down, we had quite the conversation. There are several theories, and then some people based on high-level conversations, like our own New Jersey representative, Jeff Van Drew, Tony Gonzalez, congressman out of Texas, are saying they're having high-level conversations with law enforcement and also experts who are saying that there's a possibility that there's an Iranian mothership with drones. Now, you sat down and told me something even more disturbing.
Yeah, so what we're being told, we had an unprecedented briefing on Wednesday. I mean, 200 state mayors were all gathered together, and we learned exactly what the state of New Jersey learned, which is very little. But the thing that we did take away from that was that we were told very point blank that these drones are hovering over our critical infrastructure. Now, that's interesting because they're not doing any harm. They're just hovering over that. We're also told that there's no credible threat. When you start putting things together that they're telling us, critical infrastructure, no credible threat, they're unwilling to shoot them down. They're unwilling to do a temporary ban. And we can see them that they have lights on them. So something's not adding up here. It sounds like it might very well be our highest level government. It might be government assets that are being deployed as a countermeasure.
As a countermeasure. And so two things can be true. We know the timeline, according to Van Drew and others, matches when this so-called ship, mothership, whatever it is, left Iran and appeared somewhere off our eastern seaboard. Now, if it were chock full of drones and it released those drones, that timeline fits, according to Van Drew and others. So if that's the case, of course, then we would put things in the sky because the government would know. Look, it forces all of us to try to do some sort of calculation of why the government wouldn't just say something.
They have to speak. I mean, they have to be transparent. There's no doubt about that, because what else is happening is now conspiracy theories are starting to flood social media.
What happens if somebody shoots one of these down? How does the law look at that?
Well, we were advised to make sure that we tell our residents that that is not lawful. Drones are considered aircraft, and FAA, you cannot shoot an aircraft in New Jersey. So we're being advised to tell our residents not to shoot them down.
Are you worried?
We're concerned because, one, New Jersey can't act. We don't have the ability to take them out of the air.
All right, so I lied. We listened to most of the video there. John, after hearing what he's got to say, what are your thoughts?
I generally am coming down kind of, and I know this sounds like I'm not really taking a side here, but this could be one of many things to stick out in my mind. This is a massive distraction from other things that are going on, or other things that are, we've seen this before, this kind of media focus on something, and then you find out something else was going on behind the scenes. Or maybe they genuinely do not know what this is, and they're trying to figure it out, and they don't know whether, if you shoot one of these down, if it's full of some kind of material that's very dangerous, or if it's actually some sort of explosive device, or has a payload of some sort of explosive device. I generally think that the answer would be somewhere between those two things, because I don't the ineptitude of the current government leaves me no confidence in what's going on out there. And man, I at this point, I don't know. It could be one of those two things I just laid out, or 100 others. Who knows, man? It's a crazy thing. I will say this though. Generally, when the media is hyper focused on one thing, something else is going on that we need to focus on, and that includes Fox News.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to both Grok and Chat GPT and asked both of them, what do you think is going on here? Just to see, for shits and grins, what it would give me for answers. So I took those answers and I put them into a PDF, which is available with the supplement for our brief tonight. So if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, there's a 23-page brief and a 1-page supplement, which I'm showing on screen right now. But unlike normal, this is for paid survival dispatch insiders only. The free members don't get this one. This took an entire day to put together. So from a high level, I'm going to go through what Grok and Chat GPT told us, and then I've got some theories of my own. And as we go through all of the assets that we bring up tonight, I think it'll show that I'm kind of directionally correct, if nothing else. So essentially, Grok said, that it went and it looked at web results, it looked at posts on X, aka Twitter, and official statements and what people are speculating, and it essentially broke it down into 4 buckets: U.S. government / military, foreign state actors, commercial or hobbyist, mystery and investigation. So when you take into consideration the secrecy that the feds, are displaying around this topic, the fact that they won't shoot them down, the fact that they say unequivocally that there's no threat, and the fact that they've got lights on them, they're not trying to hide it all of that, in my opinion, points towards bucket number one. It's our government or military on some sort of mission, action, whatever you want to call it. We've got some stuff coming up that indicates that these drones could be being used looking for radiation. So there's some intel out there, open source intel, saying that dirty bombs have been brought into the country. So here's the thing, is that a dirty bomb is nothing like a nuclear bomb. A nuclear bomb, when it goes off, is going to have a massive EMP with it and is going to have a massive amount of destruction. A dirty bomb is not going to have as much destruction. It's not going to have an EMP, but it's going to pose long-lasting problems because it's very similar to a nuclear power plant going down. And in that case, you've got to have some iodine 127 tablets on here. I'll talk about that a little bit more. On the chat GPT side, government operations, private companies, unregistered operators, foreign entities, or espionage. So as inept as our current administration is and the bureaucracy underneath them, I do not think that this is foreign countries. They would have shot them down if they knew for a fact that it was foreign countries. It's not unregistered operators. This is not popping up all over the country with SUV-sized drones. They're far too expensive. Can you buy them as a private individual? Yes, but they're far too expensive for this to be like a hobbyist.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the same by the same token private companies, because what would they have to gain from it? We come back to the nexus of federal government secrecy, federal government saying that they don't need to be shot down because they don't pose a threat, and they have lights on them, which are highly visible. If you take the nexus of those four things, I think you can scrub a lot of this stuff that Grok and Chat GPT came up with. And they came up with that by essentially scraping this information off the internet. So I'm pretty confident in saying that this is the current administration, or, it's our government. Now, why is it going on? If these drones are in fact looking for radiation from dirty bombs, that would make sense, but it could be something else as well. And it could be intentionally done to cause more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? More disruption for the handoff of power to Trump. They hung him with COVID the first time around, and who knows, maybe this turns like that.
I think that I made this statement last night that they're trying to gum up the works, screw this up as much as they possibly can to give Trump more holes to plug.
Yes.
Than he has plugs to use. It's one of those things of, okay, we didn't beat the guy. We know we can't use lawfare anymore. So let's just give crisis after crisis, or faux crisis after faux crisis.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know that this administration is intelligent enough to pull this off, but I could be wrong. But either way, Mayorkas, who's a massive piece of crap, and he's seeking immunity right now. He wants a plea deal. He wants to step down and get a plea deal from Biden, before Trump gets in office. And like we said last night, if you're innocent, you don't need a plea deal. This guy has very purposely damaged our country with his open borders and his gaslighting and his constant lying. I'm not going to play the whole thing because I can't stand him, and I can't stand Wolf Blitzer. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. But I'll play a little bit of this, and I promise it will not be the full 4-minute video this time.
President-elect Donald Trump, he just called on the Biden administration for you guys to either release any information it has about these mysterious drone sightings or shoot the drones out of the sky. How do you respond to the president-elect?
Well, first of all, the statements I've made already are the principal message that I want to communicate to the American public. We haven't seen anything unusual. We know of no threat. Secondly, we have gone to Congress repeatedly asking for more authority to counter drone activity. And we have also asked for more authority to give to the state and local officials under our supervision, because he correctly notes those authorities need to be expanded.
I want to play something another New Jersey congressman, Republican Jeff Van Drew, said about the drones over his state in New Jersey. Listen to this.
We're not being told the truth. They are dealing with the American public like we're stupid. They don't know what it is. They don't know what it's about. They haven't taken one down to analyze it. They have no idea where it comes from, but they know that it's not that. I mean, that's nonsense. They do not know what they're doing. Why don't they take one of them down, analyze it, and let us know what's really happening?
See, this is where I disagree, John. Again, if you take the nexus of the secrecy, we know it's not a threat, like the party line, that it's not a threat, that we're not going to shoot it down. And yeah, they've got lights, so they're easily detected. If you look at where all four of those things, if you put them into a Venn diagram, for example, this all leads to the government knowing exactly what's going on, but not wanting to tell the people, and not wanting to tell politicians either.
Well, think about this. Trump is specifically saying, you guys need to give us the information on this. That means he at least thinks or knows that the government is gathering information or has information on this, and they're not releasing it. That's a tell right there. The fact that Trump is openly saying, guys, shoot these things down or give us the information that you know about them. So there's something that indicates that he knows they're hiding something.
I would tend to agree with that. So I'm going to bring up a post here from Health Ranger, and he's pretty good. His information is usually pretty good. I'm going to read most of this here, and then we'll have a discussion around it. But the current drone mystery isn't really much of a mystery at all if you know about reality. Clearly, number one, the drones are secret U.S. government weapons platforms now being tested for deployment. I don't think that they're weapons platforms being tested for deployment, but I do agree that they are government tools. Number two, the government is keeping this information from the public on purpose because they don't want people to know what's about to hit them. That could be the case if dirty bombs have indeed been smuggled into the country. And keep in mind, we've been told that Russia has smuggled assets into the country so that terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Al Qaeda can use them against us. So that logically kind of ties in to a certain extent. Number three, various drones are capable of either A, firing kinetic rounds onto ground targets, B, dropping aerosolized bioweapons or contact poisons only in large population areas. So we've spoken at length for the past 2 years with regards to aerosolized fentanyl, aerosolized anthrax, and other agents. And there's no question in my mind that we have those types of weapons, and so do our adversaries, and so do terrorists. Is that what these ones are? I really don't think that these are, weapons. There's been some videos showing that show tracer rounds, and I've got them in the brief, and we're going to show them tonight. And each of them has been easily explained. There have been certain drills run by the Marines that were exactly where the videos were taken, and it's not as nefarious in that angle as people think. Number four, the timing of whatever attack is about to be unleashed against the American people is obviously driven by Trump's January 20th inauguration of the deep state's desire to cause mass panic, emergency war, false flags before that day. So false flags would be something like Project Bluebeam. I see somebody put it in the comments. I'm not buying it. Project Bluebeam is horseshit. It's some fantastical, theory that a Canadian guy came up with many, many years ago. And I'm just not buying it. That we're going to use holographic images of Jesus and Muhammad in the sky to scare the heck out of people and make them think that, that the end times are here and so on and so forth. I'm just flat out not buying that whatsoever.
Agreed.
So he says here, this really isn't much of a mystery at all. People are frightened by these drones, should be, because they are sooner or later going to be unleashed to exterminate Americans. I don't believe that for 1 minute. Everything is telling me that this is aimed towards finding those dirty bombs and radiation coming off of them. And that would also explain why we're seeing them in close proximity to high value targets and military bases. Again, if you just start adding all of these things up and trying to see where they all point, not, you know, with the exclusion of one or two, but where they all point towards government run drones that they're not trying to hide, looking for potential dirty bombs and radiation at high value targets. And they don't want to admit, would be my guess, like Brennan and Obama don't want to admit that because of the open border policy that they were pursuing, that they've allowed the bad guys to bring dirty bombs into America. And I've been saying for a long, long time, based on the intelligence that we have, we are potentially looking at Timothy McVeigh, Oklahoma style bombings across the country simultaneously. And there's solid intel behind that. So, John, now that I've, you know, blabbered on about all these things, what do you think the most likely thing is? What do you think the most unlikely thing is? And let's kind of establish those guidelines.
So the most likely is, well, in my mind, most likely is this is some sort of government operation being carried out, whether it be nefarious or not. I'll leave that up. I'll leave that off the table right now.
Okay.
But we'll just say governments designed either intelligence gathering, wargaming, something along those lines. To me, that's in my mind the most likely. But we also have to preface it with this: the fact that we've had an open border. We know that thousands of terrorists have gotten through that open border in the last 4 years. So we also know that we've been engaged in a proxy war through Ukraine for almost the same amount of time. And we just launched missiles into Russia at the behest or at the approval of the Biden administration. And Putin said, guys, chill the F out. Like, don't open this can of worms. Literally, and not so many words said that. So could this be something that maybe they've slipped some weapons in? We know that from multiple intelligence agents, including the Sean Ryan Superbad episode that just aired, that Russia is funding some terrorist organizations to get back at us for being engaged in this proxy war with Ukraine. So that's what I said last night. Be careful with engaging in proxy wars because you always are going to get paid back for the things you do. Least likely. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I just want to say that everything you just said makes perfect sense, that Russia would strike back. They're not going to sit there and take everything that we've thrown at them, which is horse shit, and not do something.
Yep. And Putin has zero respect for the current administration. What you don't understand about even bad guys that are leaders of countries, they still respect strength in leaders.
Yes,
they do. It's like a mob boss. He respects, honestly, I'll use a sports example. I was watching a video of Michael Jordan, one of my favorite athletes of all time. He actually respected the guys that would try and play him as hard and not just roll over. If you could play good defense, even though he could beat you, he still would respect you for that. And I think it's the same way with all of these leaders. Somebody who is tough and has a strong mind for their country, which we know that Vladimir Putin does. He's very strong-minded towards Russia. He's going to respect somebody that's the same way about their country. That's why that's why Trump could keep him from rolling into Ukraine and would have kept him from rolling into Ukraine had he been president. Weakness is what leads to this crap. It's not strength. And I've said this multiple times on this podcast. And Trump is a strong leader on foreign policy. Now, let's talk about the other thing that I don't think we've necessarily mentioned. We've talked about bioweapons. And I can't for the life of me remember this, but this was last week or maybe earlier this week. There was a soundbite of somebody in Washington talking about the key was January 20th they were talking about viruses, and we have all these viruses, these influenza strains and all these bird flu strains and all this stuff. And they mentioned something about January 20th. I will have to find this clip. I don't remember exactly where it was. But he specifically was talking about this. Now, what would be a great delivery system for an aerosolized viral infection? A drone. A drone would be a fantastic delivery system for a virus. So is that what they're trying to do? Now, I think that's somewhat unlikely because of what you said earlier. This is relegated to one specific area in the country. If they're going to do it wide scale, broadly across the country, I don't know. I don't think that's a viable thing. They would be doing this all over the place.
Well, there's quite a few reports from other states and cities. What we can't swear to the veracity of a lot of the videos. Now, I've got a few videos I'm going to bring up that I can
Peter
tell you.
Hoaxes is who people are saying.
Yeah, I've got a few videos I'm going to pull up, John, that I can flat out say are complete bullshit. But I want to address this comment from Sandy. So why did our country bring in the terrorists if it's just a foreign design? That's not the case, Sandy. So for starters, we've had hundreds of Hezbollah cells in America since the 1990s. Now it's in the thousands. Okay. Hezbollah's joined at the hip with the Mexican cartels. When you see the Mexican cartels blowing somebody or something up, it has Hezbollah's fingerprints all over it. The Hezbollah terrorists that are operating in Mexico and have been operating in Mexico for over 30 years look identical to Mexicans. They speak with the same accent as Mexicans. That's how embedded they actually are. But let's not assume that this current installed administration brought them into the country at all. They're just not that smart. Keep in mind, this is Brennan and Obama. What was their goal by opening up the border? To flood the country with illegals who would always vote for Democrats at the end of the day. They were trying to fix elections, number one. Number two, if you don't believe that, here's something that you can't argue. The Democrats have fought tooth and nail to allow illegals to be counted in the census. And there were many lawsuits leading to the 2020 census, and the courts all ruled in favor of the Democrats allowing the census to count illegals. And what did that do? That put 28 seats between the House of Representatives and the Senate in the control of, well, House of Representatives, not the Senate, because 2 per state, in the control of Democrats, as opposed to red states where they should have been if it was only counted on American citizens. So at the end of the day, the terrorists who are here have been here for years. They've grown in numbers. There is a ton of open source intel. There's also a ton of closed source intel, some of which we have access to, that flat out states that the next attack by terrorists on the homeland will be multiple simultaneous attacks across the country for several days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that this unfolds is they will attack small counties to start with, where they have limited law enforcement, and even with mutual aid from surrounding counties will not be able to respond to everything that happens. So just imagine where you have all these small counties across the country, 200,000, 100,000 people, let's say, with limited law enforcement resources, and 12 terror cells attack 12 schools in one of those counties. They will have enough resources to respond to one of those emergencies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, they go to the next small county and they attack 11 schools. And the next day they go to the next small county and they attack 10 schools. This has been war gamed out by the JTTF. By day number 3, nobody's going to work. Nobody's sending their kids to school. The entire economy crashes. You have what's called WROL, World Without Rule of Law. Now take that and do it across the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
Do that for 3 days in small counties across the entire country. You will paralyze the country. Number one. Number two, once that's happened, that's when they'll shut down the grid. That's when they'll break the grid. They'll send 700,000 kV down 200 kV lines. They'll overload transformers. They may even do kinetic attacks on substations. We have 55,000 substations in the country. 9 of them are critical junctures that would take out power to 95% of the country. And everybody knows which 9 that they are out of the 55,000. But they're not going to nuke the power, and they're not going to nuke communications until everybody knows what they've done. Okay. So let's back this up a little bit to the topic at hand tonight. The topic at hand is what the hell is going on with these drones. And there's so much BS out there right now that it takes a lot of time and effort to dig through it and figure out what it is. I'm fixing to pull up a video that shows what looks like an orb spinning in the sky. You can recreate it by changing the focus on your camera to blur out a star. And it's just like when you have lights reflecting off your windshield where they look like a bigger star than what they actually are. It's the same thing. I'm going to show that in just a second. But again, if you take all of these things into consideration, the southern border has been wide open. We don't have tens of thousands. We have hundreds of thousands of criminals and terrorists that have come across the southern border. We have tens of thousands of foreign agents from enemy states like China that have come across the southern border. Don't think for a minute that they're not cooperating with each other. They've already been cooperating together, just like I mentioned Hezbollah and the Mexican cartels forever and a day. And they have one common thing. They hate our guts, and they want to pay us back for the shit that the CIA and NSA and other agencies have done around the world where we have messed up other countries, and they want to pay us back for that. And the fact that Brennan and Obama opened the border like they did is downright sedition. It's treason. And I hope that we get to the point where the people who did this are actually going to be, held to account and pay for it. But at the end of the day, what's going on with these drones? So let me pull up the next one here. And this is a good example of what I'm saying by BS. You got to research stuff. So this is on Channel 7 ABC News, breaking. Channel 7 ABC News caught an unknown glowing orb on camera in the New Jersey sky amid numerous reports of unidentified drones stating, "We have no idea what it is." Look right in the very center of it, and you'll see the star. When you adjust the focus on a lens, this is really easy to recreate. Doesn't it look like a light, reflecting off of your windshield at night, John, coming towards you? So, it's BS, and the mainstream media shouldn't be putting this out. They should be doing their homework as well. So let's move on to the next one here. So listen closely. So this has gone viral all over X, and they're saying that people are now shooting at the drones. That is not the case. This is an altered video, and it's really easy to detect if you have the right tools. So whether it's a static image or a video like this, there are certain signatures that you'll see at a pixelated level, which clearly indicate that it's been jacked with. The other thing that you can do is you can take any of this type of content and drop it into multiple websites, and all you do is ask it, is this real or not? And it tells you whether it was AI generated or not, if the image has been messed with, if the video has been messed with. This is BS. And so, my point is you can't believe everything out there. So check this one out. This person says, and this was posted this morning. I'm looking for the time. Yeah, December 13th. Okay. So this was posted yesterday saying we can confirm 100% that these are out and over open water.
Look, nothing in the sky at all. And then all of a sudden, bam, what is that?
This is from a 2019 bunch of drills and exercises conducted by the Marines. And everybody knows that who's been following this sort of stuff. So again, we've got people tagging it, UFO Twitter, New Jersey drones. It's BS. So probably, in my opinion, John, the biggest problem that I have with the government not saying anything is it has flooded, the wire, for lack of a better term, with a lot of bullshit information, and it's hard to go through it all. So check this one out. Breaking. Sources say the drone invasion is related to a secret Pentagon program named Project Necromancer. Necromancer is next generation warfare tech combining data gathering, information analysis, and rudimentary form of mind control. you know what? There may be a Project Necromancer. I have not found any credible information on that whatsoever. But what I do subscribe to is Occam's razor. And Occam's razor states that the most obvious answer to your question is probably the correct answer. Okay.
Yep.
Now, with that being said, check this out. The drones over New Jersey now appear to be shooting something. How is this not a threat? Watch this.
Motherfucker.
So this is another drone or another drill, pardon me, and a current drill being done by the Marine Corps with tracers. Not hard to find, easy to discredit.
Is that probably a helicopter?
Most likely.
Yeah.
You know, and see, that's the other thing is that we had all these drones overhead last night. Cindy and I were out there recording them. They're gas engines. They're not jet engines. They're not electric. They're gas engines. And, you know, that in itself disqualifies this from being some, you know, alien force or something like that in my mind. So let me play a bit of this video, John, and then I'm going to turn it over to you for commentary on this. But, you know, this guy says, he's a state senator, that the federal government's hiding something so massive involving the drones, they're forced to cover it up in fear of all-out panic from the public. I think there's an element of hyperbole there, but in reality, if we have dirty bombs that have come across the border, this would intersect with that quite nicely. And actually, before I play this, I want to mention this. Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers, close personal friend of mine. He has another close personal friend, Balzabaz, who, you know, is well known to be a CIA asset. And a couple months ago, I'm talking to Doc Pete, and he's like, man, I just got these pictures from the border with the Sinaloa cartel, Hezbollah, and believe it or not, some CBP officers. And that it hasn't been announced, but I'm announcing it now. And they had 9 man pads, so shoulder mounted heat seeking, you know, firearms, 1.5 pound, pardon me, explosive on the end. They're meant to take engines down for planes. So when a plane's taking off or landing, they're the most vulnerable to that happening. Those 9 man pads have not been found. Baselbaz was fed the same information, but from somebody else. They were different sources, but it jived completely. And the day after that, when Trump was flying, you may remember he was flying in an unmarked plane. He wasn't flying in Trump Force One. And there's actually, on that topic, there's been a statement made by Trump that he's not flying in Air Force One. It was a custom plane built by Boeing. He doesn't trust it. He's going to keep flying in his plane. I got to be careful what I say here, but anybody who knows what they're looking at, take a close look at current pictures of Trump Force One and see if you can see what was quite easy for us to spot. So I'm not going to play this whole 6 minutes, by the way, but we'll get the gist of it.
You know, this started as some questions, and now it's reached a point of almost insanity. You think about a United States senator who has to go out with the local police to look for drones. That's where a United States senator is getting information. We had a briefing from the state police, the colonel in the state police. He was frustrated. He had no idea where these drones are coming from. Not only did I call for a limited state of emergency and the FAA shutting down the airspace for drones, but also having the Department of Defense come in and answer questions. If the Department of Defense doesn't know where the origins are for these so-called drones, then we're in trouble. We always thought that if there was something in the air the size of a car, that the Department of Defense would know where it came from, what its origin was, and what its purpose was. Now you have a United States senator going out with the local police, to look for fireworks at night? That is scary.
It is terrifying. Like Caitlin just reported, President-elect Trump is calling for government transparency, which you are as well. He's saying maybe shoot them down if we don't get any more information. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I would leave that up to the Department of Defense But how can the Department of Defense not provide information to the public? This is a shock to me. You know, I have a general belief in government, but this is taking me to the belief that government is really being honest. Now, there's been some apparently top secret briefings, right, with Congress people. Now they come out of that, and I heard Josh Gottheimer come, the representative, and he said, "Well, I'm not getting a lot of information, but I don't think it's a threat." So my guess is there is information, but they're holding it back. And now what you have is panic.
Yep. And that's what I agree with. They have the information. They're not releasing it, and people are losing their minds and publishing everything that they stumble across. But give me your take on what he said, as well as the fact of Occam's razor, where everything intersects here.
Well, I mean, anytime that the government is tight-lipped about something, there's, you know, it's typically not because they're worried about protecting the people of the United States. They're worried about protecting what they know. And that's what that kind of tells me. In a lot of ways, this is a CYA activity, because the reality is if it is dirty bombs, if that is actually what they're looking for, then there's got to be some really, really important questions answered for the Biden administration, for Mayorkas, and that may be why he's seeking this freaking, you know, immunity, is because, you know, maybe these guys do know that something really bad came into this country, and maybe they are looking for it. But the reality is, you know, are the people of the United States just cannon fodder? You know, just allowed to sit in these areas where they know they are? I mean, seriously. But, you know, Occam's razor would tell us that, you know, and this is, to me, and this is what I said earlier, the most likely is this is some sort of government operation, whether nefarious or not. And I still don't know if I could answer whether it is nefarious or not. Some of the evidence points that way. Some of it points to ineptitude.
Yeah, so Hanlon's razor, right? Don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to incompetence, sort of thing. But think of it this way: those 9 man pads that were brought into the country, if we can have that type of equipment smuggled across our southern border with no problems whatsoever, the prospect of dirty bombs coming into the country are pretty significant. And as you know from Mike Sterling and prior episodes where we've covered this, there are only a handful of countries in the world that have the ability to shrink a nuclear warhead small enough to put on an ICBM and launch it and actually hit the lower 48, to hit America. Okay. Specifically, you've got Russia and China. North Korea doesn't have that. Iran doesn't have that. Nothing even close. But those countries do have nuclear waste, nuclear byproducts, and stuff that can be used for dirty bombs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're back to Occam's razor again. When we look at all of these things, the government secrecy and unwillingness to share information, them saying we're not going to shoot them down, they pose no risk, but they've got lights on them and everybody can see them. And oh, by the way, you know, we've had these weapons smuggled across the border. We know that there are thousands of terror cells. And let me be clear about something here. The Hezbollah cells alone, many of those cells have upwards of 100 members in them. It's not a case of one cell, one person. There might be 10 people in the cell. There might be 100 people in that cell. And there are additional terrorist groups. There's a terrorist group out of Somalia operating just outside of Boise, Idaho. And they've got a Soros DA in that area. They've got a Democrat sheriff. And there's constant reports from this facility of machine gun fire and bombs. And when the cops do go and check on it, they're told to leave. They're not allowed to come in and look at it, and they can't get a warrant to investigate it. And the intel on that, it's a training facility. Full stop. It is a training facility. There's another one in upstate New York. This is old news. The people have known this for many, many years. So again, when you add all of these things up, you know, it all leads towards something's been brought across the southern border, and these drones are potentially looking for that, because again, out of all the drone videos that you see out there, only a very small number of them are anything legit. You know, some of them are definitely aircraft. Some of them are definitely hobbyists. Now, the reports that 50 of them came in over the Atlantic, and we're going to cover that because there's a sheriff who attests to that out of New Jersey, and we've got a video on it. It wouldn't surprise me if they were launched by one of our ships, but for Jeff Van Drew to state that there's an Iranian mothership off of our coast, bullshit, absolute bullshit. There are live feeds that if you're willing to pay the money for them, where you can get satellite imagery that's updated on a daily basis. Every single municipality in this country has that technology at their fingerprints. They all buy it from Google. And how do I know this? Well, I had a home in the historic district of Ormond Beach at one point in time, beautiful piece of property. I had 7 neighbors because I had an acre of land in the middle of the historic district where people would jump on John Flagler's train in New York, fly down here for a vacation. And that's what it was. It was a vacation home built in 1915. Well, we had a problem where rats got into our crawl space and then they ended up in our attic. It was a flat roof, so they were kind of trapped in there. So I'm on the roof of this place, John, and I'm putting mesh over top of the stink pipe, so the plumbing vents and whatnot. And I look at one of the neighbors behind us, and we had everything high fences because of our dogs and stuff. It looked like a landfill. It was full of just so much garbage and shit, you couldn't believe it. And that was a feeding source for these rats. And they were roof rats, which spend less than 10% of their time on the ground. I would watch them run down my fence, hop into that yard, then come back along the fence, follow the piss trail, and go into our crawl space, right? So I call the city. The guy shows up from the city. I had a ladder at the fence, and I said, have a look at this. And he said, I'm not allowed to. It's against the rules. I can't step on that ladder and look into that yard. It's considered an invasion of privacy, but I got something else. I will get back to you. He called me the next afternoon. He said, are you busy? I said, why, what's up? And he says, could you swing by City Hall? I said, yeah, sure. So I swing by City Hall, and they had a subscription to that Google service, and they had pictures from the day before when he came to look at it. And the satellite image showed in great detail the trash in this guy's yard. And they went, and it turned out he was a renter, and they gave the landlord, an order that said it had to be cleaned up. But here's my point. Even municipalities have access to this information. If there was a mothership off of our coast, you wouldn't be able to keep it quiet. There would be a ton of people who would be aware of that. So I'm not buying that either. So I don't know if you caught this at all, John. I don't know how much time you had to actually look at the brief, but there was an account on X called @Jersey Futures. The guy had barely any followers, and then his account was deleted. I don't know if he deleted it or if X deleted it or whatever, but this is a summary of it for our paying insiders. When you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch and you download the brief for tonight, you're going to see a whole bunch of links after this in the brief that are like a purple color. I'm not going to go through all of them because this is a summary for it. Okay. So this is from the account that was deleted. I'm one of the few groups of people who know exactly what the drones are in New Jersey. This tweet will likely go into the void as I have no followers, but I'll share anyway. Please retweet for reach. What you're seeing are American-made HPGE nuclear detector drones. They can detect the presence of gamma rays miles away. But what is a gamma ray? That's the stuff we can attribute to radiation, electromagnetic waves that penetrate you and can cause cancer. HPGE drones are built to inspect nuclear sites, but these ones aren't. In the late 2000s, the DoD needed a response to the threat of dirty bombs from ISIS coming into our ports in New York and New Jersey. They've been stocking up on these drones for a while. Some were deployed to Ukraine when Russia threatened the use of dirty bombs. They look weird because they're heavy and have giant cryo coolers mounted, as well as giant horn antennas to communicate on wave frequencies that can't be jammed. More on that coming up, by the way. This is where I come in. The technology these drones use has few suppliers, both for wave equipment and the high purity germanium. The same suppliers that are the backbone of my industry. So what are they doing? Collecting information on how the public will react, PSYOP, and testing their ability to sweep a port city like New York for dirty bombs. Jersey was chosen because we're the closest port city to New York, and New York would be too dense for reliable wave comms. But why is the DoD silent? Again, because in a scenario where we have a threat of a dirty bomb and the public doesn't yet know, the DoD needs to know how the public would react if these drones were deployed to sweep a city. What many don't realize is that Ukraine is the reason we're here. That was the first time we deployed them in a combat zone, but make no mistake, they're for protecting the homeland, as the DoD bought hundreds of thousands to act as swarms capable of sweeping a city. So what I want to say here, John, before you take it away, there's your counterbalance to the proxy war that we've been waging. You know, I'm not saying this guy's 100% right. I'm not saying that that's, you know, everything from this anonymous source should be believed. But again, I should have done a Venn diagram for tonight. I had it on my list, but I ran out of time to show how all of these things intersect. And if you think of it in terms of a stool, if you start to remove something like, well, we don't care that they have lights on the drones. Come on now. If they were trying to hide them, they wouldn't have lights on them. If they were trying to hide them, not only would they not have lights, they wouldn't be flying at an altitude where you can hear gas engines from the ground, right? So anyways, I've blabbered on enough for this part. Go ahead and give me your thoughts on what that guy just had to say.
Well, when we come to the terrorist stuff and we talk about that, let's put some pieces of this together, right? Let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit. So if it's a big if Russia, as Superbad said, is funding terrorist organizations, and let's not talk about terrorist organizations. Let's actually call it what it actually is now, and that's the Islamic Army. They call themselves the Islamic Army. ISIS, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, all of these used to be splintered terrorist organizations because they had similar but differing desires.
Minor correction. ISIS was a spinoff of Al-Qaeda.
Right. Well, but all of these terrorist organizations, main point is that they have had differing goals. Not super differing, but in a lot of ways differing. Some wanted a caliphate, some of them wanted revenge on stuff that we had done, all of this kind of stuff. They are now united. Their leader is the son of Osama bin Laden.
Correct.
And they are working to get terrorist cells into the United States. These terrorist cells, as Chris said, can be anywhere from 10 to 100 people, and there's multiples of them. So if a government really wanted to get back at us, and they were trying to start something big to get back at us from a proxy war or whatever, and they could use the vehicle of terrorists that have the same goal as the vehicles to get them, not actually putting Russian troops on the ground or Russian special forces, but being able to funnel these dirty bombs in with terrorists into ports of entry. That could be a very, very effective delivery system, because you don't have to take, you don't have to dirty your hands necessarily. You just give them to them. If they're successful, then they're successful. And maybe that does lend itself to the fact that there could be some terrorist organizations that have gotten these weapons or weapons very, very similar to them to do these acts. It would make sense. It does fit. I'm not saying I think that. I'm not saying that that's 100% accurate, but the pieces fit. And that's a rabbit trail, I know, but the pieces do fit in a lot of ways. There are a lot of people that we have. This has always been my frustration with the warmongering neocons and libcons, or neolibs and neocons, is that they want to use the vehicle of American democracy being spread abroad to enrich themselves. It wasn't because they wanted to give these people better countries or any of that kind of stuff. It's either they were after the oil, or they were after enriching themselves through things like what Dick Cheney owned, all of these, and this goes back 20, 30 years. These guys have been more interested in enriching themselves, and by engaging in these wars and making all of these enemies across the world, well, now our enemies are united against us. Good job. And they have technology. Here's another thing, Chris, and I'll ask you this question. This is on topic, but off topic. Where do you think, I'm seeing all these videos of these terrorist organizations. You know what they're using for weapons now in these new videos? They're using M16s.
Yeah, I was going to say
they're using EOTechs. They're using Magpul, furniture on their weapons. They're using where do you think they got that stuff from?
So I'm not going to name any names here, but you can check out a new website, new business called flexindustries.com. And for the time being right now, they focus on very custom triggers for multiple different platforms. And you know what I'm talking about, John. So for a whole bunch of reasons, the primary owner of that business has to remain on the QT, okay? His former father-in-law was the Minister of Defense in Pakistan. This particular individual has traveled around the world. He's like an international arms dealer that does a great job of keeping a fairly low profile. He's not a criminal or anything like that whatsoever. So he sent me screenshots off of his phone while he was in Pakistan visiting his in-laws over there, while his father-in-law was the Minister of Defense for Pakistan. And there were PVS 14 rigs selling for less than $100. There were, M4s, everything you can imagine that we left there was selling for next to nothing, not on Facebook Marketplace, but an online app that looked very much like Marketplace. And the dollar prices, get this into you. There were friggin' M249 closed bolt, which for anybody who knows anything about, machine guns, closed bolt is the bomb. Open bolt doesn't have anywhere near the cyclic rate. Are you ready for this? And you know how much those guns cost, right? $1,200 a piece.
I'll take two.
Yeah. I mean, if you could only get them into the country, right? Right. So, and somebody made a comment. I don't remember who it was. We got a lot of comments flashing by here that they're not worried about somebody in a cave. Well, they should be, because those people are the ones who have the money, and money talks and money funds everything. Then there was somebody else. Bear put a comment up there with regards to the fact that he's in Southern California. He's been telling people for years, the Muslims in Mexico. We've known about it since the 1990s. This is not new intel. There's a ton of intel out there, and you can't distinguish them whatsoever. You mentioned, John, all these people joining together, the new Islamic army, where all these people come together, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing. Well, that actually started 30 years ago, where China, Sinaloa cartel, and Hezbollah teamed up together against America. So China and its asymmetric irregular warfare, whatever you want to call it, one of the things obviously that they've been doing is sending fentanyl here, but they don't ship fentanyl from China to Mexico. They ship the precursors. And then Hezbollah and Sinaloa cartel take those precursors, and there's a sophisticated way of making fentanyl, and there's a very rudimentary way of creating fentanyl. They create them in a very rudimentary fashion, which is why they end up killing people, because it's not dosed properly. Realistically, those guys don't want to kill Americans. They want to keep them hooked, because if your drugs are killing somebody, it's less likely that your customers are going to buy more of those drugs from you, right? But either way, that's a three-way deal of them trying to get back at us, okay? So it goes without question, like you said, follow the money, right? Well, if we follow the money back, and that money comes from all these, bad actors, whether they live in a cave or not, they don't have to live in a cave, because the head of Syria now, where did he come from? He joined Al-Qaeda right after 9/11 because he was so inspired by it. And everybody's been saying, oh, he's a moderate. He started this new terrorist group called HTS, and he's a moderate and stuff. He won't do anything crazy. Have you been watching what's been happening in Syria? They're executing people left, right, and center. But he's not going to do anything like that. So now you have Syria under the direct control of our enemy as well. So moving on to the next part of this story. So this is kind of a follow-up piece to the last article that I read. And this particular person says the drones over the East Coast aren't Iranian or ETs. The drones are ours. Correct. They're sniffers. They're desperately trying to find nuclear material because the deep state is planning a false flag with a dirty bomb. I don't know that I'm really buying that. I will buy the fact that it's almost assured that we have dirty bombs in the country. Now, are they going to be used by the deep state? for a false flag and then to declare martial law and not hand over power to Donald Trump. Could that happen? Yeah. Is it likely? No. I mean, I just don't see that as a high probability. But I do believe that we know that we have drones that sniff this stuff out, go and spot it. We know it's come across the border. We're back to Occam's razor again, right? So basically, I believe this was posted to 4chan, actually. And as you know, you have to take everything from 4chan with a grain of salt. So listen to this from General Mike Flynn. If you don't like the weather, just wait a few minutes. If you don't like the wars we're involved in, just wait a few minutes. What's next? Martians landing at Mar-a-Lago. 5th generation warfare is very real. So this is asymmetric, irregular warfare. The drones and the threats they pose are very real. Our military's hands are clearly tied because we, the U.S. military, have the full complement of capabilities to stop this drone madness. The White House is purposely allowing this to happen to further complicate the smooth transfer of power. Do not kid yourself for 1 second. So General Flynn is leaning towards this strictly being a psyop, and he may be right, but again, all the evidence that we've seen, all the evidence that we've covered points towards they're hunting for something here, and they're hunting for dirty bombs. Makes the most sense. All right, so next one here. This is where I mentioned there were 50 drones spotted by a sheriff in New Jersey, and this is a short video. I think I have a longer one queued up here, but we'll listen to this one first.
One of their officers called 911 after seeing 50 of them come off the ocean.
Advised after we made contact with that officer that there were 50 that came off the ocean.
50?
50. That was my reaction also. There were 50 that were coming off the ocean.
And this is a sworn officer.
A sworn officer, yes. We contacted state police, we contacted the FBI, we contacted the Coast Guard, at which point the Coast Guard went out with their boat and they reported seeing 13 following their boat. And then the Coast Guard also advised that they went over them about 300 feet and had a wingspan of about 8 feet.
You know, the Ocean County Sheriff, that drone unit, they have an industrial grade drone. They put it up. They were tracking one of these drones, Elizabeth, and they said this thing easily evaded them, disappeared out of thin air. So, you know, to me, it's if this is not our military, then it's even more scary, and we need answers, frankly.
So again, I've already stated my thoughts on this. What are your thoughts as far as, I mean, you've got a drone, I've got a drone, you know more about drones than I do, so does S2, but it doesn't strike me as particularly alarming that a high-end drone would perform much better than, say, a DJI drone off the shelf, even a $20,000 DJI drone. Our friends here from U.S. Arms Company have a $20,000 DJI drone. It's badass, man, but it's not going to run with, an ISR. Look,
No, it's what those $20,000 drones are used for. I actually have some friends in the film industry that do some high-end work in the film industry, and they'll rent them from time to time. They're used for cinematic purposes, so they're not made to fly super fast because of capturing video most of the time. The ones that are really scary, the ones that can fly crazy fast, yeah, those aren't stuff that's really commercially available. I mean, you could buy them if you had enough money for sure, because they're not outlawed. But man, I mean, let's not mince words. I have friends that have built drones, like put them together, big drones, like stuff that could probably carry 50 pounds. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility if you have the knowledge of how to make them work. So it's. These things can perform very, very well. You think about an ISR or Predator or something along those lines. Those things have been out for well over a decade now in regular use for military surveillance and all of this kind of stuff. You guys want a crazy movie to kind of give you an idea? There's a movie on Netflix called Land of Bad. Really, actually good, entertaining movie. But it shows just a hint of what these things can do, and it's freaking crazy. Like, it's almost borderline scary.
Yeah, that Russell Crowe for sure.
Yeah. It's a really good movie, and it gives you a look into what those things are capable of now.
Yeah,
that goes to your point, Chris, of if they wanted to be quiet, these things have thermal imaging, freaking night vision, all that stuff. They can operate completely outside of any kind of visual or audible, place. They can set up thousands of feet in the air where you can, far enough away that you can't really hear them, and survey stuff.
Let's be realistic, okay? So ISRs and predators typically fly between 5 and 10,000 feet off the ground. You can't see them. You can't hear them. They have no need to run any lights on them whatsoever. They have incredibly sophisticated equipment as far as the picture quality is concerned. And like you said in the movie, The Land of Bad, you kind of get an idea of just how easily they can track it. I mean, they can track stuff the size of a dime, for crying out loud. It's way more sophisticated. So there would be, realistically, there's no need to, run drones that have lights on them that can be seen and heard if they're trying to be, off the radar or have some nefarious purpose. I'm not saying there's not a nefarious purpose here, but I really think that it comes down to looking for dirty bombs.
Well, this would be an interesting thought. Let's talk about like Navy tactics. So submarines. If you really want to find a submarine, you can find a submarine. You can bang away with an active sonar and you'll find any submarine in the world. What that does, though, is it gives away all of your positions. So maybe it has something to do with what the tactic that if they are looking for nukes, and let's preface it with that. They are looking for nukes. Maybe there is some sort of tactic or some sort of altitude that they have to stay within to be able to actually, maybe they have to be close enough to be able to see this nuclear material, if that's what they're looking for. I don't know. I don't know the answers to that, but it's just a hypothesis.
Yeah. Our good friend Velcro threw this up with regards to the RQ-1 Predator in 1995. So we've got Bill Brown coming on Survival Dispatch News Tuesday evening. And Bill Brown is best friends with Pete Hegseth. And Bill Brown is a former SEAL, and he's a combat veteran. And I looped in Admiral Robert Harward on that conversation as well. So you're talking some of the, most esteemed military guys that we've got. Bob Harward said to me a year ago, he said, "Chris, when do you think we first started using drones?" And my response was, if I had to guess, I'd say, Desert Storm, in the 90s. And he said, yeah, go back 3 more decades. His father was the head of a project. You can look it up, Project Gyrodyne, Gyrodine. And it was in the late 1950s where we had remote controlled drone helicopters that had a 42-mile range that, guess what they did? They dropped torpedoes because the Soviets at that time had somewhere around 300 submarines, and we kept spotting them off our East Coast. And this was the answer to it. Drones in 1958, I believe, is when that project was on. So, yeah, this is not new stuff. I was also told by the Admiral that without divulging anything, him saying that to me, is that what we're aware of as the public and what the military has at the highest levels, there's decades of gaps between the time we've used it and deployed it to the time that people know anything about it.
It goes back to what I said in the Operation Desert Storm. We saw those big black freaking F-117s come out of the hangars and drop. Oh, stealth. They can't even be seen from the radar. Blah, 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 blah. They've been in service for 30 years. The SR-71, when it made its big splash, it was going out of service. Just imagine what they have now. And basically think of it this way. The instant that you had Radio Shack remote control cars and helicopters, the military's had that technology for 50 years at that point. Yeah. Because if it can be broken down to the civilian market and given to the civilian market, the military and governments have had that for decades.
Well, we're coming up on 100 years since the first drone, not aerial drone, ground drone. So the Nazis had remote control 4-wheel vehicles that could drive underneath tanks and be detonated. They were, I can't remember the name. You can look it up and easily find it, but that was the very first unmanned weapon that I've heard of. And that we're going back now almost 100 years ago for that. So there was something else. Somebody made a comment on the side. I missed it. I'll come back to it. I guess when I have a chance to look at it. Oh, that was it. The one that was up, the news articles of nuclear material being stolen from here. There were reports of that. There was also Hillary Clinton selling enriched uranium to the Russians while she was Secretary of State. You know, people may have forgotten that. So, you know, who knows what anybody attached to this crooked administration has done. So we got a handful of other things to bring up here with regards to the drones. So this was supposedly captured by a Ring camera last night, recorded a mysterious UAP on the night of December 13, 2024. The footage shows strange movements that could have left viewers creeped out and intrigued. Could it be a drone, UFO, or something else? Watch and decide. Watch to the right of the screen, John. Did you see how did you catch that light beam of light that looked like a tail? Right there. Did you get?
Look at the weird outline on the house, though. It almost looks like it's a drawn. You see that?
Yep.
It looks like a. I don't know if I buy this being real.
I don't, and there's a reason that I say that. And there are two things that have very similar names. I'm going to look it up in just a second to make sure I'm quoting the right thing. So Project Bluebeam was this like theory of this Canadian who said that, you know, we were going to have these holographic images of religious people coming back, and, you know, would scare people so bad that we would have to have one world government. So Freedom Nugget is right on the money here. So hologram. So there's another project that's called Blue something something. I'm going to look it up in just a second. That has been around for a long time. That is precisely what Freedom Nugget just mentioned. So basically casting holograms into the sky, showing things like, you know, ships and missiles and all kinds of things. Basically a show, but it looks very realistic. That technology exists. We have that technology to cast those types of holograms. It's been around actually for a long, long time. That one there didn't look real to me, but I can't completely disprove it. But it is possible that it is that particular project. And again, I'll go looking for it in a minute when you've got the helm. But moving on to the next one here. Give me a second just to pull this up quickly. Man, I'd kill for a producer, John. I don't know about you. So check this.
I had somebody post on Facebook, if you could have two things and money wasn't an option, and my two was a camera guy and editor and a producer. Those would be the two. And like if money was no option, I'd be like, there you go. That's money well spent.
So I'm right there with you. If there's anybody in the audience who wants to work for free, we've got those two positions open. Doesn't pay well, but it's all part of our mission, which is pretty simple: to dispatch information so our fellow Americans and friends of America can survive in these very uncertain times. All right, strange sounds from New Jersey skies. Eerie footage reveals radio stations in New Jersey picking up strange sounds, possibly from the mysterious UFO drones. Some describe it as sounding like a form of language, sparking speculation. Is this alien communication? Are they trying to speak to us or warn us? So let's have a listen to this.
Oh my fucking God, I'm freaking
All right, John. So before I make any comments on that, I want to hear what your thoughts are after hearing that.
I mean, maybe somebody left a microphone on the frogs. I don't know. I get really skeptical of this kind of stuff. Could be, you know, and we do live in a world where information can be disseminated very, very quickly. So it's not like we have to wait for, you know, a newscast at 7 o'clock in the evening. Like we can put this stuff out fairly quickly, but I don't know. I'm kind of about skeptical, like I was of the last image you showed of the flash of light. Until there's something a little bit more substantiated, I'm gonna hedge my bets.
Yes. So I'm not an expert on detecting gamma radiation, but I've got, some recollection at some point in time of seeing that there was an RF component to that, radio frequency component of that. Maybe somebody in our audience who's an engineer and expert can comment on that. For me, I'm back to Occam's razor. The most obvious things usually the answer to the question. If that person was in close proximity to the drones, and if those drones were indeed scanning, for gamma radiation to detect the presence of a dirty bomb, could it disrupt radio frequencies? Absolutely. It has to by law, right? I mean, the whole thing is when you get into all the different RF frequencies, the technology has to be built such that something else can interfere with it. It's not the exact wording, but that's basically what the FCC says.
Yeah, Knights Who Say Knee. Great reference, by the way. I remember when this happened. It was in the late 80s that this was all the buzz. Like I think 1989, where they supposedly drilled down and they could hear screams from the biblical hell. That was a theory or a thing that was going around at the time. I was a little kid. I was like 7 or 8 years old, but I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. So I did have a chance to quickly look it up. NASA's Project Bluebeam, and people can look it up if they want. It's not in the brief. Let me see if I can find something here quickly to bring up on it. But and actually, I'll bring it up when we get going here. But it basically
what was the synopsis of the thing, Chris?
So the other one I'm trying to recall.
Blue Book is, I brought up Project Blue Book, which was a UFO related one.
Yeah. So Project Blue Book is the one that's related to, that's the Canadian guy's theory that religious figures would come back and that we would be broadcasting stuff into the sky. Blah, blah, blah. But NASA's is Project Bluebeam, and it's a directed energy weapon essentially, and holograms in the sky, et cetera, et cetera. And there's actually some footage out of Israel when the missiles were being lobbed at them from Lebanon going back however many months ago it was. And there was a fair bit of speculation on some of those things actually being Project Bluebeam, that it wasn't realistic. And I don't remember the reasoning behind it. I'm not saying that that's the case. I can't swear to that veracity of that, but I can say there's plenty of evidence of Project Bluebeam. Our government has discussed it multiple times. It's NASA developed the technology, which is another interesting thing. A lot of these things that have been spotted in the sky and recorded, when they're far enough away that you can't hear them, a lot of the times there's cloud cover, and cloud cover is an important component of broadcasting those holograms, right? So all right, moving on to the next one here. We've only got a few more tabs left on the subject of these drones. The U.S. government has tried and failed to bring down UAPs, which are flying around New Jersey. Have they considered trying to communicate with these unknown objects to ask what they want? So, I mean, I don't know what this guy's basing that comment on. It's 1 minute and 41 seconds. I'll play the whole thing, but I have seen absolutely zero confirmed reports that we have tried to take them down and failed at doing that. And I don't think you shoot down your own drones anyways. I'm 99.99 sure that these are our own assets.
Firstly, good evening, Chris. Look, I have to say I vehemently disagree with any assertion that either the FBI or the Defense Department have any idea, any clear idea, what this phenomenon is over the East Coast of the United States. I'm talking to people in the FBI who are utterly baffled by this phenomenon. They tell me they do not know what these objects are. They're not getting answers. I'm told, for example, that these objects are the size of an SUV, a large SUV. So the argument from the congressman that these objects are too small to detect is not correct at all. I'm told that there have been attempts to interdict these objects and that there have been the deployment of anti-drone technology. I've just received information in the last few minutes about the PSEG nuclear site at Salem, which is the Hope Creek generating station on a 740-acre site in Salem County, New Jersey. And a person who is privileged enough to have access to the internal messaging about that nuclear station, has told me that they tried to deploy an anti-drone technology over multiple drones that were seen over the nuclear site, and that anti-drone technology, which normally works on all drones, completely failed. Moreover, these objects, whatever they are being seen not just on the East Coast, they are being seen all over the world. I'm getting reports from here in Australia, from Japan, Indonesia, China, Russia, Europe.
All right. So first things first, I don't know who that guy is. I don't know who his sources are, so I can't, speak to anything one way or the other. But
well, he has a British accent, so that must mean he's intelligent, right?
Yeah, Australian, but
or Australian, yeah.
I'm not buying the fact that we tried to take these things down and that we failed. So you probably remember me mentioning that after Mike and I started on with regards to the terrorist threat from drones 2 years ago, and we were told we were doomsday preppers, didn't know what we were talking about. We said aerosolized fentanyl and aerosolized anthrax, and lo and behold, that's the direction that things have gone. I've mentioned this before. So there was a request for proposal on sam.gov, supplyandmanagement.gov. That's where all federal contracts are awarded and managed, looking for directed energy weapons, EMP weapons that you could shoot at a drone, knock out the circuitry, cause it to crash, and then hopefully have something that you could recover from them. And I believe that's what he's alluding to in that video, because that RFP went out a long time ago. And I know for a fact that you can build an EMP gun yourself. Go search on YouTube on how to generate your own EMP. Now, the catch with drones is, and the RFP, the way they designed it, is that they wanted a device, this directed energy weapon, that had a very small footprint to it. So it was only hitting the drone and not everything in a broader area, right? So we have directed energy weapons. There are different types of directed energy weapons. We have microwave radiation energy weapons, which the Australians of all people have used. They used it to disperse a crowd in 2021 in Canberra, Australia. But a microwave radiation is not going to take down a drone. It cooks flesh essentially, right? But I don't know if that's what he's alluding to or not.
It's hard for me to believe that we don't have something that could take these guys down.
Well, I'm not believing that. And you heard General Flynn, or you saw General Flynn's response. We have the ability to interdict these things. And these are not some crazy high-tech vehicle from outer space, from aliens. I mean, they've got gas engines, for crying out loud, and you can hear them plain as day. So I highly doubt that an advanced life form from somewhere outside of our galaxy traveled all the way here on a gas-powered device.
And we should be able to track them back to where they're being launched easily.
Absolutely. So I got a couple more videos here. I'm not going to play them. I'm just bringing them up. If you are a Survival Dispatch insider, patreon.com/survival dispatch. Tonight's brief is only available to paying members. It's 23 pages long, plus the supplement that we showed earlier. So here's a video. Now they're in DC. What's being done about it? This should have been nipped in the bud. And here's another one. Last night, the drones made their way to Los Angeles, California. And here's what I've got to say about those and other reports. By not publishing believable information, what it's done is it's made people just run wild with theories on what this is, what it could be. And somebody made a comment, and I agree with it wholeheartedly, is that the longer this goes on, that people don't know what the details are. They launch their own drones to see if they can find drones with their drone. And there's been quite a few people who've testified, attested, I should say, to actually doing that. I thought of doing it myself last night when we had drones overhead here in Central Florida, but I didn't have time. I would have missed the beginning of Survival Dispatch News. But I'm not buying any of the crazy theories. I really think these are drones that are designed to find a very specific threat inside the country. And let's be honest, as inept as this Brennan, Obama, Biden, cabal is, I don't believe for a minute that they want a nuclear bomb or a series of nuclear bombs to go off in America. That just doesn't square for me. Are they bad guys? Yeah, they're absolutely bad guys. Would they blow up nuclear bombs in America? And maybe a small chance, but I don't think so. And that's my thoughts. So now that we've discussed all of that, I want to bring up something for our audience here, just so that they're in the know. So these are potassium iodide tablets. This is off of Amazon. As you can see, I purchased them last time, December 23rd, 2022. I have them on hand for us, but I've also given a lot of these away. So here's the deal. Your thyroid gland is powered essentially by iodine. And when when the tank goes down, the human body, the thyroid, cannot distinguish between iodide 127, 131, 133, so on and so forth. 127 is completely benign. It's the fuel for your thyroid. And here's the thing. If your gas tank isn't full and a nuclear plant blows up or a dirty bomb goes off, not a nuclear warhead, but in the other two instances, and you are exposed to iodide 131, 133, they are radioactive. They're very carcinogenic. They'll kill you real fast. Your body will absorb them if the tank's not full for your thyroid. Okay. So those tablets that you take, or capsules, I should say, you take them for a maximum of 12 days. If you're in close proximity to something like a 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, those sort of things. So if we kind of close the loop on this, we know that we have many tens of thousands of criminals and terrorists in the country, most of whom have come across the border since this administration was installed, but some of them have been planted here for upwards of 30 years. We know that they've been capable of bringing high-grade weaponry across the border. No big surprise there. So if we take all of that into account, and we believe that the drones are government owned, seeking out gamma radiation, trying to detect where dirty bombs are that very likely have been smuggled into the country, could have been provided by Iran, could have been provided by Russia, possibly even Rocket Man in North Korea. But if I was a betting man, I would say Iran and Russia, like you pointed out. We've got this proxy war going. What a great way for them to pay back Joe Biden in America. But anyway, if we take all that into account, and we do have simultaneous attacks, which that's been on the books for a long time. The next attack on the homeland is not going to be, one simple thing, one and done. It's going to be a series of attacks, and it's going to be over days, not one day, days, plural. If we have dirty bombs in the country, if those dirty bombs go off, you really need to have the iodide 127 on hand. That price has gone way up, by the way. So I couldn't believe that it was $40 for that supply. I want to say when I bought it last time, John, it was like $19.95 or something, but welcome to Joe Biden's America. Do you want to drop anything further before we wrap up chapter 1 here?
I think we've covered most everything, and probably time to move into the other items.
All right. Okay. So we've got a short 30-second message from our sponsor, CCW Safe, and we will be right back.
If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
All right. So chapter 2, per our usual format, we pick around a dozen top headlines, stuff that's top of mind for people above and beyond the main topic, which is chapter 1. And then chapter 3 is always some funny haha or really bizarre stuff that we put in there. So the very first one I want to pull up here, and this kind of hits home a little bit because we're friends with Victor Avila. So Victor Avila was one of the two DEA agents who were shot up in the Fast and Furious scandal in Mexico. They were stationed in Mexico City. They were told that they needed to go down Highway 58, the highway of death, to investigate something. Nobody uses Highway 58. Nobody uses the highway of death except for the cartels. The whole thing was a setup. They got shot up. They were surrounded by cartel members on the highway, got shot up. Agent Zapata died in Victor Avila's arms. And somehow Victor managed to survive. If you go back to 2012, it was all over the news at that particular point in time. Check this one out. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's a 5-minute video, John. but cartel targets Border Patrol agents reportedly planning a revenge shooting.
Border Patrol agents have received crucial intelligence in San Diego, California, of retaliatory revenge shootings plotted by a cartel along the California border. A Border Patrol agent on November 27 hit a person with their car while driving along this border. Information suggests that that person struck was a member of the cartel. Now, according to an internal memo, the San Diego Sector Intelligence Unit has received information that the cartel is plotting a revenge shooting on our men and women in green. But in the middle of all this, larger San Diego County, of course, does not seem very concerned. In fact, they're doubling down on sanctuary policies.
So I'm going to stop it there, because if anybody hasn't been paying attention, hasn't watched this, San Diego County has now declared itself a super sanctuary city, meaning that they're going to take their level of obstinance to a whole new level and not cooperate with Tom Homan and the mass deportations. However, the sheriff of San Diego County disagrees, and Tom Homan says he's going to start arresting people. But the beginning of that video, speaking of revenge shootings, this has gone on for a long time. This is nothing new. And, you know, JJ Carroll's a good friend of ours, has attested to this. Victor Avila has attested to this. Jason Jones, Lieutenant Colonel Doc P. Chambers, all these guys in the border. So what the cartels, their MO has been for many, many years, is that they'll go to a CBP officer or somebody else of authority at a specific point on the border and say, here's a bag with $250,000 cash in it. We're coming through here tomorrow night at such and such a time. We need you to turn away and not look. And they've got away with that. And there's been lots of crooked people who've accepted money and allowed this to come across the border and into our country. Well, when the agents don't play along with that, they become targets like that. When the agents arrest people like El Chapo's son, they become targets like that. So we've heard plenty of death threats against not just Tom Homan, but all the other people that we've mentioned as well. And it should come as no surprise, but the cartels are pretty fierce. Maybe not as fierce as people think they are. We've seen the videos, right, John, of like an F-350 with, you know, makeshift armor and stuff on it. I mean, it doesn't compare to the stuff that we have in our military, that's for sure, but enough to do.
Yeah. As Evan Hafer said on Joe Rogan, if we decide to go full blown dropping Navy SEAL teams on these guys, they better figure out their retirement right now, because that's not going to be pretty. These guys, they are brutal. They are absolutely brutal. They are like prehistoric levels of brutal. But they're not, they don't have close to the technological advantage that our troops do, or the training. They're just brutal, and they're bullies in that they don't really go toe to toe with heavily trained people. They ambush and they use their brutality to keep people at heel in the countries that they're in. Now, one other MO is that they're going to exact revenge. If you go after them, they're going to play revenge on you. Look at Pablo Escobar. He had citizens within the country. What was it? I always forget the country. It was in Colombia.
He's from Colombia.
Yeah. Colombia. Okay. Yeah. I always get mixed up between Colombia and several other drug infested countries, but he was trying to run for a government position inside of Colombia. And then when it was brought out that he was a drug dealer, guess what he did? He turned on the government and started killing cops at large to where nobody would be a cop anymore. Now, the problem is you're not going to be able to do that with the United States. If we are actually going to do what Trump said we're going to do, then we're going to unleash hate on these guys. And they don't want to pick that fight. But in the meantime, they have no respect for the current administration. So they're going to try and get as much through as they possibly can in the short period of time that they have. Like basically a month and a week.
Now, I would add to this that the doesn't matter who the bad guy is, the bad group is, they thrive on the element of surprise.
Yep.
So if you take the element of surprise away from most bad guys, whether it's a street thug or a cartel, there's a high probability that they won't engage. However, with that being said, you mentioned how brutal the cartels are and the gangs like TDA and MS-13. A big difference between them and gangs in America is they go from 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye.
Yep.
So
100%.
You could be in Chicago, for example, get in an argument with somebody who's in a gang there, and you might get your ass kicked, and you might not. But if you have any, tense moments or words with these Latino gangs, they go from 0 to 100 and just shoot you on the spot.
Yep.
Or
they'll slit your throat or put a tire with gasoline over you and light you on fire. Yeah, they're evil, brutal people.
Super violent and super fast to go to violence. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the upside though. We have a record number, like what Lloyd Austin and Biden and of course all the other bad actors like John Brennan and Obama have done to our Department of Defense is unconscionable. However, with that being said, we have the highest number of spec ops operators right now, special forces operators of all time. We have 74,000 that would be spread amongst, these are tier 1 assets, whether they be Green Berets, SEALs, Delta Force, et cetera. And let me just give you an anecdotal example. I was talking to Rob O'Neill one day, and Rob O'Neill is the SEAL who shot Osama bin Laden. And I know there's lots of arguments. Some people think that he didn't do it. My response to that is when he wrote his book, it took a year for the DOD to proofread it and allow the information to be published. So everything in there was agreed upon by the Department of Defense. Not that we necessarily trust everything that they say, but the other part to it was, and then a lot of people don't know this, they all had body cams with GPS locators on them. So after a period of time after bin Laden was killed, and I don't know, this whole thing of never seeing the body and thrown off the boat doesn't ring well with me, but I do trust Rob O'Neill. He's a decent man. Basically, I asked him, I said, when y'all were deployed to go to Pakistan and capture or kill Osama bin Laden, how much training time did y'all have together? Do you know what his answer was? Zero.
Yep. I was going to say
zero,
if not zero.
So I asked him, I said, you got 2 choppers full of soldiers, some of whom have served with each other, some of whom haven't trained with each other. How the heck do you go on a raid like that without the coordination of training together? You know what his response was? And I've since asked other people like Mike Glover this question. We've done the drills so many freaking times. We know exactly what the guy beside us is going to do, whether we've trained with him or not. And that's a really crazy high level of proficiency.
That shows you the level of training in tier 1. That's what sets them apart. I'm not saying there aren't dudes that can do some badass stuff in the regular ranks in the military. There absolutely are. And then you have Rangers, which is kind of the step up from that. They're kind of the ground forces of the special forces, but you get into tier 1 guys. Well, we talked about the movie Land of Bad earlier. Yeah. The whole premise of the movie is set around tier 1 operators being, and they put an Air Force PJ in the middle of them. Yeah. Or JTAC. Yeah. And that's basically the whole movie, but he's a little green because he's never really been in combat. I'm not going to give away any of the premise of the movie, but those guys, you can plug them in anywhere at any time, and it's not going to diminish your skills or your abilities to take a target or destroy an asset.
So, unfortunately, Mike couldn't be with us tonight, and you know how I love to rib Mike and lay stuff on him and whatnot, but check this out. I've shown this to you, and I've shown it once or twice on air, if I could find it, for crying out loud. We were at Randy Couture's gym, and we had the I can't find it now. I'm not going to delay the show. We had the privilege of meeting John Tig Teagan from Benghazi, and you want to talk elite warrior? I mean, just totally next level guy. He's the only one who freaking survived, for crying out loud.
Well, and think about, those guys in Benghazi and the 13 hours debacle that was Hillary Clinton's fault, is you had what was it? You had 2 SEALs, 2 Delta guys, I think a Ranger, and those guys handled themselves with no support perfectly in that situation.
This is gonna kill. Oh no, there we go. Yeah, that's John Teagan right there, Tig Teagan. Pretty awesome guy. He was there. He's doing some work with a company who makes super high-end sniper rifles, but very down-to-earth guy, by the way. Just part of my regular Forrest Gump routine, right? I'm never the smartest guy in the room. You know, I'm a college dropout, but I've been blessed in this lifetime to go on amazing adventures constantly. So while we're discussing Department of Defense, check this out. And we are going to do everything we possibly can to support Pete Hegseth, by the way. So why Pete Hegseth? Want to cut waste and get away from bad ideas like putting women into SOF units, Special Operations Forces, do away with the Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Service, abolish it. DACO-WITS has been around since 1968. It's always been a bastion of high-powered radical feminists and their weak male accomplices, hell-bent on making the U.S. military an experimental gender lab, always with a focus on feminizing the military and never with a focus on improving war fighting. So I don't really care who wants to flame me over this, but we are not equal. Women and men are not equal at all. And one of the analogies I typically draw for people who are my age, I'm 55, is I ask people, when's the last time you went to a bank? And of course, we don't go to banks very often like we did in years gone by, but when's the last time you went to a bank and saw a male bank manager? They don't exist. If you go back to the 80s and the 70s and stuff, it was all males, right? It's all women, and it's all women for a reason. You know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but women cross all their T's, dot all their I's. They're very pragmatic and thorough, whereas most men who have testosterone in their system have that military mindset. Y'all see that hill over there? We're going to go take that hill. And when we're done taking that hill, y'all can have it, make it the perfect hill, because you see that hill over there, we're going to go take it next, sort of thing. So my point is this whole thing of equality is just complete and utter bullshit. And I competed for 25 years in powerlifting and set a bunch of world records and stuff. There's no woman ever in existence who has bench pressed anywhere near what I did, even when I was down at 181, 198, 220, 242, 275. I competed in a bunch of different classes, and there's not a woman, even a super heavy over 300 pounds, that could bench anywhere near me. Men and women are not equal, and they're not equal physically either. Now, are there outliers? Absolutely. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know, Lanny, she's a female who's the chief experience officer at the old front site. It's called Prairie Fire now. She's a world champion biathlete. She's a machine for what she is, but she's like 5'2", 100 pounds soaking wet. She's an amazing shot, and she's very athletic. But what's let's just take for a minute and throw out Netflix, where a 100-pound woman beats the shit out of a 300-pound guy, knocks him out with one punch. I used to be a huge fan of boxing, by the way, John. I loved Mike Tyson, but I would hate the undercard. Like, we'd be in Vegas at the HBO fights, and all of the welterweights and lightweights, those fights almost always go the distance, because they may hit the other guy hundreds of times during the fight, but they've got no sauce on them. You don't see knockouts like you do with heavyweights and light heavyweight sort of thing. So again, that point that is made with regards to getting rid of this, feminizing of the military, you got to pick the right person for the job, man. At the end of the day, it's got to be merit based, right?
Well, and here's the thing. Riley Gaines, very well known for her, defense of female sports and not allowing trannies and gender madness and gender jihadists into the women's sports in this country. She's married to a college swimmer, a fairly decent swimmer, but kind of middle of the road as far as ranking. She was the number 1 female in NCAA swimming,
Division I.
Yeah, in Division I. And she said this many a time. She's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm top tier in female swimming, and my boyfriend, who is an average college swimmer, still, you're still talking top 1 to 3%, kicks her butt in the pool and doesn't even have to try. Just absolutely obliterates her."
don't quote me on this number, but that mentally ill guy who thinks he's a woman, Leah Thomas or something like that.
Yep.
If memory serves me right, he was ranked 378.
I think,
Okay.
it's something insane like that.
It's a ridiculous number, right? And he's kicking their asses. This whole thing of letting men and women sports, when it started happening, John, and ever since then, I've had the same thing to say. All of those women should boycott that event.
Yep.
They should do an event in parallel that's unsanctioned
100%
until this madness stops.
Yep.
You know,
and you know what? People, by and large, the vast majority of people would support it.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. So
talk to Elon and let him stream it on X.
Yeah, exactly. So we talk a fair bit on immigration. We frequently tell our audience, pay attention to what's going on in other countries. It's a bellwether of what's fixing to happen here, especially Western countries, right? And we saw the mass invasions in Europe before we had this debacle at our southern border, thanks to Brennan Obama, etc. The next video speaks to this of, import the third world, become the third world. But I personally think that most of Europe is lost. It'll never be reclaimed, and it's just going to continue to get worse and worse. And there's this thought process or argument, I should say, on behalf of the left that's around the world says, well, the only way you can grow your country and grow your economy is to bring all these immigrants in, because somebody has to be working and paying taxes to support all of the pension funds for all of the different, civil servants, blah, 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 sort of thing. And I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that. Like if we didn't have any immigration, our population would be in pretty significant decline, and there wouldn't be enough people working to keep the system running. But I'm certainly not in favor of this invasion stuff. I had an idea, John. I was thinking that maybe one of the things that this Trump administration should be looking at is showing extreme favoritism to immigrants from other countries that, number one, fall under an L class visa, which is an entrepreneur's visa. So that's a promise to spend X amount of dollars in our country and hire X amount of people, but also to go to people who are willing to say that once they become American citizens, they will not be dual citizens and their allegiance will be to America. I don't give a shit what color their skin is at all. But if you love America and you come to America because it's better than wherever you came from, don't try and change us to suit the third world shithole that you came from, right? And I think maybe we should be putting, some focus on that immigration wise. But check this out. I know you're busy doing a lot of editing and stuff today, but on the left-hand side is this young lad, and on the right-hand side is a bunch of these invaders from one of those countries. And Radio Genoa, these guys are never afraid to publish anything that could be considered inflammatory. But his quote on this: cultural differences about 1,000 years. So I personally think that's a pretty good example of the differences in cultures. And, you can only water your culture down so much. You can only bring people in from third world countries so much before you turn into a third world country. And I think I mentioned, I don't remember if you were on or not, but yeah, right here, check this out. I'm with this guy here, girl, sorry, moving fast, and dual citizenship in Congress. Here's the thing. We've mentioned this before, but I'm sure we've got some new viewers. Nobody in the current cabinet has a valid oath of office. So my good friend Todd Callender, very esteemed attorney, his team discovered that. So, Mayorkas's, oath isn't notarized. Merrick Garland's isn't signed. They're purposely defective oaths of office. Okay. And so Mayorkas was born in Cuba, and now he's a dual citizen of Israel and America. And I'm here with Pewee McPherson right here. No dual citizenship. If you're in our government, you are either 100% loyal to America or you don't get to, be on the team, sort of thing. So kind of, this is, we could talk about for days and days on end.
Could I share a video real quick? It's not in the brief, but it's something that I meant to send you earlier today.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is, let me get it shared here.
I mean, we're into chapter 2 now, so anything goes.
So this is a very prominent, I forget his last name. His first name's Ibrahim. And this is him talking about how Europe is lost and why Europe is lost. So
you're not doomed yet, but in all of world history, there has never been a civilization that has so opened its doors to another civilization that is openly hostile to it. So this is unprecedented, what's happening. Your ancestors of Europe, and I describe it in my books because I write about history, fought tooth and nail to prevent Islam from entering and conquering Europe, because that was one of the grand plans that went on for century after century. From the east, the Turks were trying to enter the Constantinople. They surrounded Vienna in 1683, and before that, the Muslims, I told you, went up into Tours in France in 732, 1,000 years later. This was an actual goal. And now Western Europe is saying, oh, none of that matters. It was a misunderstanding. Come on in. But they haven't changed. That mentality, and when I say they, that's obviously, I'm simplifying. The mentality that I've described is part of Islam. It's an Islamic concept. So the Islamic State, you're told, oh yeah, they have nothing to do with Islam. They've twisted it. No, they haven't. They are a representation of what Islam, the caliphs, the sultanates, the emirates, that's how they operated. The heads of Islam, the grand imams and the muftis said the same exact thing. Okay, so that is what it is. Again, it's not my point to arguing, well, this particular migrant wants to conquer you. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's looking for a good life. I understand that, and that's what makes it complicated. But to just open your borders completely to that demographic, which has within it, not all of it, but within it, that kernel of animosity for Christians and so-called infidels.
I'll stop it there, but that guy has written so many great books about what is going on. And I'm talking like years gone by, and now you're seeing it come to fruition where these European countries, and we're flirting with this, guys. What's going on in Europe is coming to our shores, and you have to be careful with that, because what he said is right. Not all people related to Islam want this jihad, but a lot of the leadership does, and they're the ones with all the money, and they're the ones that are trying to do all of these terrorist acts. And if they can't conquer you, then you're an infidel and you deserve to die.
Yep.
That's what they believe.
So somebody in Great Britain created a graph, John, with the average IQ based on somebody's first name. And Muhammad is now the #1 name for babies, males being born in the UK, right? And there's some very controversial numbers out there by some very prominent people who study this stuff that basically says that in Israel, the Jews in general have an IQ of 114. Asians in some countries like Japan, average IQ of 112. White Caucasians typically around 110. Blacks in North America around 90. And blacks and Muslims in Africa around 70. And they attribute the 70 jump up to 90 IQ points is because, and there's always outliers, I'm not saying that, but it is because of our genes being mixed with them here. And we see it over and over again in these videos, especially out of Europe, where these are some very low IQ, violent people that they've imported into their countries. I don't know that they can, recover from it, but we'll take their brightest minds and make them Americans.
Generally, low IQ does have a higher propensity to violence.
Correct.
They jump to violence much faster. Like, I know high IQ people. A lot of guys in special forces are very high IQ.
For sure.
Like, to be able to do that kind of stuff. They don't jump to violence. They're actually looking to avoid violence until it's absolutely the only thing left.
Just look at our friends Mike Glover, Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete Chambers. These guys are super high IQs.
Yep.
And they were both Green Berets. So it's funny you mentioned Riley Gaines, by the way. So this is 9 a.m. this morning. So Florida finalized its election results in just 13 hours. For perspective, this means that Florida could have counted its votes 70 times over before California finished counting theirs. 70 times over. So yesterday, California finally, finished counting. And the
1
reason,
month and 8 days.
well, and we know why, because this next post, Mike is very high caliber, by the way, Mike Engelman. The 2024 election was that it was too big to rig against Trump. So the down ballot races were rigged instead. 37 days to count California, where multiple House seats were flipped 100% to the Democrats. The BS shenanigans in Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Like we have got to get our arms wrapped around this election fraud. You have to show valid ID. You cannot do mail-in voting unless you're deployed overseas, in our military, and paper ballots, no machines tallying them, same day results. And if India can do it with 1.2 billion people or whatever it is, I think it's about 800 million of them vote, can do it in the same day with voter ID. All these other countries, even third world shitholes, require ID to vote. It's not a hard problem to solve. Now, with that being said, check this out. You want to talk about how we grow the country? This is how we grow the country.
What if Canada became the 51st state of the United States? If Canada joined the U.S., the flag would be updated to include 51 stars. This merger would make the U.S. the largest country in the world, covering 19 million square kilometers, surpassing Russia. The population would rise to 373 million, making the U.S. the third most populous nation after India and China. Canada's economy, with a GDP of $2.9 trillion, would rank as the third largest state economy after California and Texas. The U.S. defense budget would increase by $26 billion, and American influence in the Arctic would grow significantly, boosting its global power. Such changes would create global concerns. Russia would need to strengthen its Arctic military presence to counter U.S. dominance. China would face challenges in both the Arctic and Pacific regions, requiring strategic adjustments. Meanwhile, Mexico, heavily reliant on the U.S., would need to explore new strategies to ensure stability and reduce overdependence in this evolving geopolitical landscape. Could this happen?
Thoughts on that, John?
It's very interesting. There's also a lot of rich minerals up in Canada as well, in a lot of different places. And it's vastly untouched because the giant chunk of Canada is under snow for most of the year. But it's interesting, and it's a thought. I know that the Canadians, by and large, would be absolutely for this because they're tired of their government. Obviously it would probably, because of the way these parliaments work, and I hate parliaments because of this, because it's not even really a true democracy. It's a vying of getting coalitions together inside of a government, and there's no real power, and that's the reason Trudeau, even though the vast majority of Canada is more conservative minded, when you get outside of the large cities, even some of the large cities, but you've got this power structure that Trudeau has been able to wield, even though he is a very unpopular prime minister, extremely unpopular.
It's illegitimate elections. It's the same thing. Nobody votes for these WEF pawns like him at all. And when I speak to Canadians, not one of them has a positive word to say when it comes to him. So I will mention, Robert and let's see here, Andrew, I just wanted to make a quick correction there. You spelt Turdo wrong, Turdo, Justin Turdo. So, because he's a turd. And I'm with Velcro, and this is our buddy, good guy. No one should be allowed to be a dual citizen. You can't be loyal to two nations, 100%. Could not agree more.
What is the population of Canada?
Well, they've had unmitigated immigration for years now, and everybody's pissed off about it. I want to say it's around 38 million ish, something like that.
Kind of adding another California to us, but I'm not sure. I honestly don't think you'd make it one state. I think you'd make each province a state.
You've got 10 provinces and 2 territories.
Yep. So you'd be at 60 states, and some of those would be much more conservative, because somebody put in the comments that we'd be adding a bunch of Democrat voters. I don't know that that's actually true.
So especially when it comes to Alberta and Saskatchewan. So when I was flying across the continent doing training for Sun Microsystems, Alberta is pretty hardcore conservative. Lots of cowboys, cowboy hats, cowboy boots, and ranchers, that sort of stuff. There are people for sure. Believe it or not, the French in Montreal, at least, are pretty conservative. Montreal is the only major metropolitan city in North America that you are guaranteed to get a cab driver who speaks English. I shit you not. I mean, when I was flying all the time, I could be in San Diego and I'd get somebody from some third world country and I'd say, take me to this hotel or conference center. And they would hand me a map and ask me to point on the map where I wanted to go. I mean, anyway, that's a whole other topic unto itself, but
I'm a little short on time, Chris. So if we can kind of,
we're right there. We got 2 left in chapter 2, and then chapter 3 will go fast. It's all just fun stuff. So love Tom Homan's comments here. And for those who are new to Survival Dispatch News, we've worked very closely with Tom Homan and Border 911.
So you will not only go after the illegal migrants, you may go after some mayors who aren't helping.
If they step over that line, they can sit back and watch us, which I find incredible. You don't want to take public safety threats out of your community and help us. But there are laws on the books that we will prosecute. It's 18 U.S.C. 111, impeding a federal law enforcement officer is a felony. Title 8 United States Code 1324 III. If you knowingly conceal or harbor an illegal alien from ICE, that is a felony. When I was an agent a long time ago, I've arrested U.S. citizens for harboring an alien they're holding or place of employment. If I can do it to a citizen, why can't I do it to a politician who's going to actively get in our way, prevent us from doing our job?
Yeah, 100%. I told you, General Val, he sent me an email months ago asking that exact same question, rhetorical question. Why aren't we arresting all of these public officials who've clearly broken the law? And it was rhetorical, as I said. But anyway, this is the last one for chapter 2. Tom Cotton, any federal worker involved in auctioning off border wall materials to sabotage President Trump should face a full investigation. Unbelievable. Like, they're auctioning off huge, pieces of the wall for $5 a piece. This is anti-American criminal. It's criminal.
Yep. You're 100% right. And so is he.
Yeah. So, all right. That's the end of chapter 2. We don't have any message to play here. So we're going to go right into chapter 3. We got some good stuff here. Some good, funny, ha-ha stuff. I may not play all the videos the full length, but enough to put a smile on your face at least. And I'm just getting them all queued up right here, John. I've got a couple more to go quickly, and I will be done in just
While you're doing that, I'll just give a shout out real quick. Several of you guys jumped on our website last night and bought some of our merch. Greatly appreciate that. We still have our holiday sale going on righteoussavages.com. Coffee, merch. You can show your support to us. We really appreciate it. We've been recording a crap ton of content that's going to be dropping both on Survival Dispatch and on our main channel. So please, if you find it in your heart or you have somebody you think would love to have one of our shirts, hoodies, any of that kind of stuff, hats, go to righteoussavages.com. You get 20% off with the code Christmas 2024.
So at the peak of this broadcast, by the way, speaking of support, for the first chapter on the drones, we had 1,200 people across all the different platforms. We're still sitting around 800 and change. And if you could please mash the like button, we would appreciate very much. Mash the like button, subscribe. Those things, plus how long you watch the video, is what gets each platform to recommend our videos to other people. Would really appreciate if y'all mash the like button before we go. But all right, and this goes pretty fast for the most part. So yesterday, President Trump was seen wearing his Trump was right about everything hat. I need one of those hats. I mean, I gotta have it. It's just gotta have it. All right, next one. If there were unidentified drones flying over Ukraine and not New Jersey, we'd have sent $100 billion and 40 tanks already. Funny, not funny, right? These ones here just crack me up. cracks me up, the stuff that you can do with AI and whatnot these days. All right, next one here. So just wanted to let everybody know I'm from Texas and I know some boys. Just saying.
We got plenty of those boys in Southern Illinois too.
Yeah. And actually, you know, we have found who is responsible for the drones over New Jersey.
I tell you what, man, I know YouTube, one of the big things on YouTube was the cat videos started off right off, you know, being really popular. There's still, cats are hilarious freaking animals, man.
They can be.
Oh my gosh. I'm not a cat person, but I can watch some of them cat reaction videos for hours. It's really funny.
I'm with you 100% there. I am not a cat person either. So we'll move on to the next one. I think this cat, oh yeah, I was going to say the cat comes off at some point in this one, but this next one is absolutely freaking brutal. So I'm going to let it play more than once.
Oh.
Oh my God. All right.
Oh gosh, that makes my hip hurt.
Oh, and I meant, you know what? I meant to put this one earlier in the rotation, but amount of people eligible to be mass deported. Man, that 900,000 here in Florida and 1.7 million in Texas. These are big, big numbers. It's this is not funny. Haha. This is a lot of work that's going to have to be done to reclaim our country.
Almost
All right.
500,000 in Illinois. That's insane.
Yeah. So this one cracks me up. Never pick a fight with anyone over 50. They're full of rage and sick of everybody's shit.
100%. I mean, I think I'm a pre-50-year-old at 42 because I feel that way.
That's too freaking funny. Here's one, you know, suggesting that we regrow a set of balls here in America. And I totally agree with that. And I've got a whole like stack of these memes that we'll go through quickly. I'm just loading them up into Chrome right now. I just actually loaded one of your favorite ones. So this one's good. Dealing with the mass immigration crisis is complicated. Me. Is it though? Mass deportation airlines. Make it happen. Seriously.
Yep.
Make it happen. So last night we had a bunch of Time People of the Year, you know, with Mark Cuban for Lesbian of the Year and Harry Sisson for Fag of the Year. And here is the shit poster of the year.
Best follow on X right there is the owner.
Yeah, that's right on. Okay. This one here cracks me up. We've solved the drone crisis. Let me zoom in on this. We've been trying to contact you about your car's extended warranty.
Oh my gosh, that's like every other phone call that shows, you know, possible spam.
Isn't it? That cracks me up. All right, this one funny, not funny at all. We're giving away, you know, countless sums of money to Ukraine, and we're completely not stepping up to the plate and doing the right thing in East Tennessee and West North Carolina. And this person, and you've seen this one, discovered what's behind the drones in New Jersey, at least. Friggin' fat tub of
You know,
lard.
one of the
Right.
things that I wish would have been true was the rumor that when he was working for Trump in his first administration was that Trump would send him on late night McDonald's runs. They said it wasn't true, but I wanted it to be so true that he just had to run and get McNuggets for Trump at freaking midnight.
He's such a golly, whatever. All right, we'll move on from there. So next one up. If you want to understand how to fix a problem in the world, you have to ask who is profiting from the problem, not who is suffering from it. And
Correct. Follow the money.
exactly. That's what we always say. Next one here. This one, Justin Trudeau again. Justine Trudeau. There's a reason why women sit with their knees together. He's such a soy boy pansy. Golly. Well, of course, he announced this week he's a feminist, right? Did you catch that?
Yep.
Yeah, you'll always be a feminist.
I literally think my testosterone goes down like 200 points every time that he freaking talks. Ugh. It's like
brutal.
disgusting.
Absolutely brutal. Income tax, the fine you pay for being productive. Welfare, the reward you get for being unproductive. That's a mouthful right there.
A homily.
People who want it, homily, exactly. People who accuse us on the MAGA side of being a cult. A cult doesn't have 77 million people. That's called a revolution. A cult has a few thousand people with blue hair and pronouns.
Yep.
Agree with that wholeheartedly. When the establishment calls Trump a threat to democracy, they really mean a threat to their corrupt bureaucracy. And speaking of the Time Person of the Year, it was tough to figure out who the retard of the year was. So you got Mark Cuban, Adam Kissinger, Tim Walz, and I can't remember, Aaron Bushnell, the guy who set himself on fire.
So mine would be, honestly, I think Kinzinger. He's been a retard for so long that he just is. And honestly, that guy should be investigated and thrown in jail for the stuff that he hid. The stuff
100%.
Him and Liz Cheney, the two biggest, not just turncoats on the Republican Party, but treasonous turncoats to the country.
Could not agree more at all. Last night, when we had a larger panel, we were discussing drones and what the possible motivation was, and several people posited that it's the government setting up to make drones illegal. That they're going to have to take them back because they do offer a huge. It's a massive force multiplier when you're going toe to toe with anybody of any size. So here we go, come and take it. So it's kind of like a gun, just different, right? All right. So homework section. What do we have for homework for our followers based on the main thing that we discussed tonight? Number one, up your prepping game and make sure you, your family, and your fur babies have masks, high quality gas masks. We've had intel for a long time saying that the bad guys want to do aerosolized fentanyl, aerosolized anthrax in various types of drone attacks. And there's some discussion that they would try and saturate entire cities. You got to have this stuff on hand. And I would also recommend that you try and wear it just around the house for a little bit, because mass claustrophobia is a real thing.
Yep.
And it took me quite a while to get over it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I've seen, so having been in the military for 12 years, we had to wear chem warfare suits. If you guys don't know what chem warfare suits is, it's the most claustrophobic inducing outfit that you could ever wear. You're literally looking out of a hole like this. And I'm talking the old school gas masks, the new M40s, which are similar to the ones we showed from Mira. Very, very similar to those. Some of the new military ones. The old school ones were awful. And you not get a good seal, you fog up, and then you can't see anything. I spent many a days, 8, 10, 12 hours in those things. And after that, it's almost like if this was a real world thing, I'd almost be like, the planes are off the runway, I'm just going to go die now. That's how bad it is.
Listen, when I was doing run and gun training, I tried a bunch of different gas masks. And the first time I went, I was doing 5 circuits, about 45 minutes of training. And I'm a pretty determined person. And I was determined I was going to get through. It was over 100 degrees, middle of summer. At the end of the 4th circuit, I had to rip it off my face. I was so claustrophobic. I thought I was going to die. It had nothing to do with cardio capacity or anything like that. Although I'll tell you, I would like to get a popper, so that I've got something that actually feeds the air in and reduces load on you. But it took a while before I could do it for 5 back-to-back circuits. And I mentioned it last night. I'll mention it again just because we're on this topic. If you're going to buy a gas mask, number one, make sure it's got 40 millimeter NATO attachments on it so that you can essentially use universal filters on it. And the other thing is, have a close look at the viewport and what that does around your cheek. The Mira ones, a couple other ones as well, but I do like the Mira ones, were the best ones for me to get a cheek weld with an SBR. Whereas like the other brands, which again, we're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses, so I'm not going to mention them. I couldn't get a cheek weld to save my life. Not a regular cheek weld, which I'm used to shooting with. So that's important. I've got 2 more things on our homework. Stay on top of developments on Survival Dispatch News and X in general. Keep in mind, basically, we put somewhere between 6 and 10 man hours into every single brief, which is every single day. And if someone was to ask me what the value of it is for people like our audience, well, most people have full-time jobs, they've got kids, they're busy. We consume a massive amount of news across the spectrum. We go all the way from hardcore left-wing MSNBC, CNN, to bullshit in the middle like Fox News, to all the way off the other end to like the natural news, that hardcore conspiracy theorists, right wing, and we pick out of it what we feel is the most believable and most valuable information. So it saves you a ton of time. So that the brief that we have each day is kind of like your own private curated newspaper, basically done by the team here at Survival Dispatch. Number 3, we've mentioned this before. I got to mention it again. Be skeptical. Do not believe anything you read or hear until it's been backed up by reliable sources. I'm telling you, it's a mission to try and figure out what's believable and what's not believable, even for us. And we've got a knack for it. We do it 7 days a week, but it's only going to get worse with the advent of AI. You're going to see sneakier and sneakier stuff come. When you get a phone call and you answer it and you say hello and nobody answers, doesn't seem like there's anybody on the other end of the phone, just by recording you saying the word hello, they can now reproduce your voice to say anything that they want, and they can make calls to other people powered by AI with or without a script using your voice. And I mean, again, this stuff is going to be harder and harder to distinguish between what's real and what's not real. John, have you got anything you want to add to that, especially as it relates to drones and potential terrorist attacks on the homeland?
Research. We do a lot of it at Survival Dispatch. I would encourage everybody to start planning to deal with new technology in your preps. That is something that's coming. It's only going to get worse. So being obstinate and saying, I'm not going to get involved in it, man, you're putting yourself even further behind doing that. So stay up to date on technology. It is the war that we're going to fight. Information, is the war. It's the next generation of warfare.
100%. Absolutely. 100%. Could not agree more on that, John. All right. So again, patreon.com/survival dispatch. If you sign up for a free account, usually you'll get our briefs for each of our episodes. So your curated daily newspaper. If you're a paying member, you for sure will get all of the briefs, as well as behind the scenes content, discussions. Most importantly, you get an invite to our private Signal chat, which there is a shit ton of information shared on there.
I can't keep up with it, man. I can't keep up with
it. It's unreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the camaraderie and the level of information, the volume of information is off the chain, and it's a two-way street. There's been stuff that our friends, audience have posted in there. That's the first that we've heard of certain things, and they've set us on the right path. It's really, really valuable. So with that out of the way, and Mike not with us here tonight, we will wrap up. By the way, please mash the like button. I got to remind everybody one more time. Let me see where we are. I mean, over on Rumble, we peaked at around 300 on Rumble. We only have 54 likes over there. On YouTube, on the main channel, I'm showing 2 likes. That can't be right, because we had about 600 on there at one point. But anyway, please mash the like button. Conflicted question, super short one. What do you think of the theory that a shape-shifting reptilian elite race control the world?
You mean demons?
No, reptiles.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thought, but I don't buy into that stuff very, very much. That's a bridge too far for me, probably. So
bridge too far for me as well. Although if you watch American Horror Stories, especially the portion where they had Teddy Roosevelt on, there was a lot. Actually, no, it was Eisenhower. It was Ike that was on. Does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? That's a unanswerable question, really. So I'll say this: I don't believe that this reptilian race is controlling, Hollywood and the elites around the world, but I can see where it comes from. John, have you watched the videos of somebody like Joe Biden where he doesn't blink for minutes on end? I mean, and honestly, there are some people in our government that look like they could be lizards. I'm not saying that they are. I'm not, I don't buy into that conspiracy theory, but I can see how some of the ways that some of them behave actually are reptile-like, for lack of a better term. So,
yep. 276 likes on YouTube, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, it's showing 2 over here on my extra screen, but that's good. That's good. Cool. All right. So we'll be back at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Every single night of the week. I just got a text from our friend James at Pilgrim Ammunition. He sent me a long PDF. Did not have a chance to read it. Obviously, I just got it, but it's based on somebody wrote a paper on a false flag being concocted with drones and supposedly fake aliens. So that may or may not be one of the topics we cover tomorrow night. We'll see what happens over the next 24 hours. But other than that, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate your support. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless America. My name is Chris Evan, and I'm the CEO of Survival Dispatch. I was a member of our national powerlifting team for many years and won many state, national, and world championships. Even though I'm in great shape for being 55 years old, I am not immune to father time. Most of us feel weaker and make more trips to the bathroom as we get older. U.S. Army research has led to a breakthrough for the #1 water for older Americans. It's not a special sports drink, but a mix with essential nutrients most hydration drinks lack. Keyword, hydration. These nutrients are proven to enhance muscle strength, reduce soreness, and improve bladder health. A Texas doctor leveraged this research and formulated a drink mix to help you stay strong. Click the link below for up to 44% off at nativehydrate.com/dispatch, plus free shipping and a free gift. This is one of the best deals I've seen for high quality BCAA drink mixes. Don't miss this deal.